Good. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So my talk today is teaching and learning about truth, beauty, and goodness. My first part of the talk is about transcendent values in education. Okay, good. Truth, beauty, and goodness are sometimes referred to as transcendental values, and they are thought to be the ultimate values and objects of learning. So in education, science pursues the truth, the arts and literature of beauty, ethics and religion pursue uh, goodness. Now, Howard Gardner, great American psychologist, recently wrote a book called Reframing Truth, Beauty, and Goodness, and he remarks that when he was visiting his preparatory school for his 50th reunion, he saw the words truth, beauty, and goodness over the door of the building. And he thought, I never noticed those before, and I never really thought much about them. But their presence is not surprising. These were the classical ideals for education, written in stone over the doors of many school buildings from the Middle Ages until well into the 19th century. And we may even see these words on school and college buildings today, but in our secular, relativist, anti-metaphysical age, they're now empty words. The question is, can they be reclaimed for our time? Good. Now, a good place to start is with Socrates. Socrates was the first philosopher to think systematically about these values as a group. He said, those who know the beautiful and the good will never choose anything else. For everyone strives for the good as they know it. The only reason people do evil or create ugliness is ignorance. Justice and every other virtue, he said, is knowledge. To do the good, you first have to know the good. Let us pass on to Plato in Book 7 of the Republic. Plato, using Socrates as his stand-in, imagines a group of men shackled in a cave. So, Plato asks us, if we can look at the left, Plato asks us to imagine a group of men shackled in a cave. Behind them, there's a fire burning. And in front of the fire, there are men with marionettes, puppets, and the shadows of the puppets, the reflections, show up on the wall of the cave in such a way as to have a kind of flickering, shadowing of reality. The only objects the men are aware of are these images cast by the puppet show. They don't get to see anything real, only shadows of puppets, which are themselves just imitations of real things. If the men speak with one another about the worlds that they see, they will surely think that the shadows are the real world. And Plato invites us to consider that some of these men might feel dissatisfied, may feel there must be something else, and they will ascend from the cave toward the light. And you see this in the right-hand image. He says that just as the sun will illuminate the visible objects in the real world, we can think of something analogous to the sun, a light that illuminates our ideas and distinguishes and clarifies them and makes them clear. This he calls the form of the good. The form of the good shines light on the objects of our mind, on the intelligible world, just as the sun shines light and illuminates the visible world. The form of the good allows us to know the good, and by knowing the good, we can pursue the good and also know the real, being able to distinguish truth from falsehood. Good. Now, Aristotle was Plato's student for 20 years and then started his own academy. He disagreed with Plato's idea of forms that were completely detached from real, from the visible world, the things of that we see in front of us that are illuminated by the sun. Uh, Aristotle was more interested in ordinary things: horses, houses, dogs, other people. He felt that we could have general knowledge of these by studying them closely, studying horses, studying houses by seeing how they're built. And we can study them and learn their forms. And that was basically Aristotle's idea. But he agreed that the good has rightly been defined as that which all things aim at. So all things aim at the good. They aim at knowledge. So knowledge and the truth are part of the good. And Aristotle said, we know that we desire to know. An indication of this is the delight we take in our senses. Even apart from their usefulness, they're loved for themselves. So think, for example, of just a little girl out in a field looking at a beautiful flower with a butterfly. Aristotle says, yes, she's interested. She wants to know, and she just takes great pleasure in her senses. Now we move to the Neoplatonists. The Neoplatonists tried to make a synthesis of Plato's and Aristotle's ideas. They accept Plato's ideal forms existing beyond the visible world, but they also assert a connection between the physical world, the world of horses and houses and flowers, to the ideal forms of horses and flowers, and eventually to the form of the good itself. They picture humans on a quest for unity, for union with the good, the one, the true, and the beautiful. Now, I want to say that the Neoplatonists, Plotinus, who was the first great Neoplatonist, lived 600 years after Plato and Aristotle. He lived in 250 or so AD, and he was completely familiar with Christianity, with Judaism, and with Indian philosophy as well, with Vedanta, with the Vedas. And he picked up this knowledge of the one as much from Indian philosophy as from Western philosophy. So he was really the first global philosopher. So here's our aim as humans, trying to achieve the good, the true, the beautiful, and the one, starting with the things that are in the visible world, and then moving through their forms, their ideals, to the true, good, and beautiful as part of the one itself. Now, these ideas of Plotinus had a profound influence on Jewish, Christian, and Muslim philosophy and theology. It was quite natural for the theologists to think, well, the one has to be God. And the true, the beautiful, and the one are the names of God. Okay, so Christian theologians said, well, if the one is God, then, well, Jesus is the Son of God, so he is also the one. But because it's hard for humans to perceive the one, they need a kind of human example. And Jesus is then thought in Christian theology to be the example, so we can know the one, the good, the beautiful, through the imitation of Christ. Well, what about the beautiful? St. Augustine, who was a Neoplatonist and a follower of Plotinus, said, how can we love anything but the beautiful? Can anything compel us? Can anything draw us that is not beautiful? And he said, look, when we see a beautiful picture, what's beautiful really can't be seen with our eyes, but we can know it more clearly than by sight. It's the knowledge of the very source and creator of all beauty, God himself, through the light of faith and virtue. Now let us take a look at this Botticelli image, very famous image of the birth of Venus. This picture has been interpreted through a Neoplatonic lens. It expresses Augustine's idea perfectly. Venus is a goddess. She's born complete and whole outside of time. She is perfectly proportioned. She's not just a pretty girl, but she's the ideal of beauty. And so through our appeal to Venus, we get to see the ideal form of beauty and ultimately the ideal form of the good and the true. Now, these ideas of the one, true, good, and beautiful became the leading ideas of the medieval universities. Transcendental education became the standard education in the West. Now, the story is quite different in China, and I don't have time to get into that in this lecture. But in the West, these ideas, ideas were the governing ideas of education through the medieval universities, and then in the United States, through the liberal arts colleges and the preparatory schools, where young boys and later young girls went to study in the liberal arts colleges. It's no wonder that Howard Gardner saw truth, beauty, and goodness over the door of his college because it was written on so many colleges. Good. Now, by the end of the 19th century in the West, these ideas were fading. The German universities did not want to be bothered with religious values. They wanted an ability to search for the truth through science, unconstrained by religious values. The same thing happened in the United States in the land-grant colleges, where agriculture, engineering, and commerce became the major goals of study, and the liberal arts ideal, the ideals of the old universities in Oxford and Cambridge to Harvard, was replaced by these new ideals of scientific truth. Now, today, here's an image of the University of California. It's the multiversity. Now, the multiversity was the mid-20th century model university. Even the shadows of these ideals were replaced by the goals of national security and national economic growth. In his important book, The Uses of the University, Clark Kerr, president of the University of California in the late 1950s, said, "The university is now an open space where values contend. Truth, beauty, and good had been replaced over the door by the names of transnational corporations, Wells Fargo Hall, Open Depot Center." In his 1997 book, The University in Ruins, Bill Reed said that through globalization, the university no longer even serves the nation. It serves global multinational corporations, and in terms of its ideals, it lies in ruins. So now I want to talk about where we are today with school lessons in our current age. And I'll be talking mostly about the education of African American kids because that's suitable for the pandemic situation and the current racist situation in the United States. In the first forum talk, Carol Lee showed us this slide about what matters. And she says, look, here are kids. They're striving to live a good and a beautiful life. They meet various challenges, and here I mention them: poverty, illness, racism, gangs, strong sexual desires, pregnancy, police violence, incarceration, drugs, homelessness, etc. And at the bottom, we see the things supporting these children, the agencies and structures for good. And we ask ourselves, are the schools adding to the challenges, and are they adding to the supports? And we see that the schools that young people attend are coercive, monotonous. They have an abstract formal curriculum that's removed from life. They're crowded classrooms. There's no room to think, and they're segregated. So we can say for sure that the schools are not providing adequate supports for these children. It is certainly undeniable that in many ways, today's schools look like Plato's cave. The children are shackled. They have no contact with outside realities, only with words from textbooks and teachers, which they write down and memorize. The words mean little to them. Today we have smart classrooms. The classrooms may be smart, but the effect is the same. The screens separate the learners from reality, and the teachers are like puppeteers directing attention. Students see flashing screens instead of the realities illuminated by the sun. They have no access to real objects and processes of nature to please their senses and excite their thoughts. Instead, they get classroom lessons. And as these images show, all over the world, it looks exactly the same. So instead of the truth, they get truth lessons. Good, and this is often what it looks like. Abstract formulas. It has no concreteness. Where's the beautiful flower with the butterfly? So many students are just exhausted by this. They want to give up. It works for many. It does not work for many more. Many students are just confused. They have little motivation to learn. They drop out, or they simply become depressed or suicidal, or they act out and are sent to jail. Good. Now, the great biologist E.O. Wilson has recently been writing about this, and he says, look, this is nonsense. He says, imagine a girl, he says, thrilled by seeing a natural system, or a remarkable geologic formation that stirs her imagination, or a group of animals, or an anthill. The youngster dreams of learning science, becoming a scientist. But her teacher says, wait, biology is based on chemistry, and chemistry is based on physics, and physics is based on that big M, mathematics. So before you can get into that beautiful geologic formation or that anthill, you have to study math. But for young people, for many young people, math is a big bugbear. They're deflated by it. They're defeated even before they start. Wilson says, I have a professional secret to share. They don't need it. He says the most powerful mathematical skills are relevant only for a few science disciplines like physics. Elsewhere, great science is a matter of conjuring images. Great discovery arises from daydreaming, from intuitions built from observations and field notes, or just trying to explain something to a friend. When scientists need statisticians and mathematicians, they hire them as consultants. We should be furthering young people's interest in the real world. The insistence on mathematics is just a barrier. Can we move to the next slide? Now, I want to pass from truth lessons to beauty lessons. And here, I'm going to admit that I am exaggerating somewhat, but I think you will catch the point. Good. So here we see an image of some young kids looking at a print of a picture of a fruit stand. Art appreciation is an art course designed to increase knowledge and appreciation of the visual arts. Students focus on interpreting and evaluating works of art within formal, that is kind of how the forms work together and work together with each other, evaluating works of art within formal, cultural, and historical contexts, as well as a survey of art history from prehistoric to contemporary, including a deeper look at global artworks. So they might see a picture from Africa as well. Good. Here's where I'm a little apologetic. I went looking for images of music appreciation slides, and this is all I found on the web, on the Google search for music appreciation images. Now, let's take a look at the picture on the right. Yes, there's a teacher over there way back in the center. On the screen, we see somebody playing an electric piano, and here on the loudspeaker, we have sound coming out, and people are taking notes. In the meanwhile, and here's my point, outside of school, outside of college, kids and young teens and young adults are surrounded by a world of vibrant culture. Good. So first of all, on the streets, we see the graffiti. Yes, may not be beautiful, But remember Augustine. As a starting point, they see something intense, something vivid, something that attracts them, something that expresses their pride, something that expresses their feelings. Okay, now the visual arts of Black artists often pick up on the folk culture of the Black popular vernacular. You see here a picture of some Black musicians, or a beautiful image that's taken directly from graffiti. I'd like to talk about these two images. The first one on the left is from Romain Bearden's Spring Wave from 1964. Now, Bearden prepared this picture, it's a collage, as he was preparing to attend the March on Washington that Martin Luther King held in 1964. And you can see that the image takes particles from the world of the ghetto, but rearranges them in a way that they make a striking image. Bearden has reorganized them in an image that is rich, intense, and well-ordered, showing the possibility, even in the ghetto condition, of great beauty. Now, on the right, this gorgeous picture by Thomas Michelin, the portrait of Nanja from 1910. Now compare it with Botticelli's Venus, in that it depicts an ideal beauty, order and perfection, not Renaissance European beauty perhaps, but African American beauty. We can read this picture as telling us Black is beautiful. Thomas says of his pictures, they all make political statements. And in fact, John Dewey said, all art is a protest because all art reflects an order that is intense, that is rich, that is engaging, and it stands as a protest against monotonous and difficult real-life conditions. It's a truth and a beauty that's present but not yet visible. So here are some images from the Black art scene that children in the community are surrounded by. Beautiful dances by Alvin Ailey, hip-hop street dancers, rock music by Jimi Hendrix and Prince, beauty and fashion images, jazz music. Here are two giants of the jazz world, Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk, two of the greatest American musicians of the 20th century. And these musicians were present in the Black community. Thelonious Monk performed at Harlem, at the Apollo Theater. He had led street dance. So the point I'm making here is that outside of school, outside of college, the children are surrounded by a vibrant culture. In school, they get lessons. Now let's talk about goodness lessons. Right, so in school, children get lessons in morality. Sit still, hold your hands in front of you, don't talk to your neighbor, keep your hands to yourself. Now, these may be necessary for classroom order, but it's not the morality of a free people. It's the morality of a shackled people, a slave morality. Now, how did human beings actually become moral? They became moral, according to recent anthropology, especially during the era of big game hunting, when it was cooperate or die. Human groups that learned how to cooperate were able to catch big game and survive and thrive. The groups that were not died out. So we have it in our human genome that the remaining humans have a kind of natural instinct for social life, for cooperation, for getting along with one another, for being reciprocal. Okay. Here is the problem. Kids do not get a chance to cooperate in school. They are learning lessons and they are being graded and they are competing. The question is, who's got the highest grades? Who's going to get into the best school? Who's going to go past the big test? Who's going to get into the big university? These conditions actually challenge and weaken the morality which is present in the human community. School lessons cannot make people good. They can only detract from the goodness that is already baked into the human genome. And to make things worse, the schools that our black children go to are getting more segregated. Here's an image from the 1950s. Little white kids sitting here in one corner, little black kids sitting here in another corner. Take a look at this image. This image is now 60 years old. But today, our schools are just as segregated as they were then in the United States. Now, the situation in China is actually quite different because China's ethnic groups do not have the same different histories that American ethnic groups have. And so there's been a considerable integration of many Chinese ethnic groups into the Chinese culture. This is not true in the United States. So where you see these numbers, like in California, you see 8%, in New York, 13%. These are the numbers of kids that are going to non-segregated schools. In New York, California, and Texas, more than half of Latino students are enrolled in schools that are 90% minority or more. In New York, Illinois, Maryland, and Michigan, more than half of the black students attend schools where 90% or more of the kids are minority. Wherever there are high concentrations of minority kids, they are segregated. You cannot build unity. You cannot build cooperation and hope out of segregation. Okay, so now we have the Black Lives Matter protest. People are out and they are trying to protest the state killing of black males. Maybe they would be better off, rather than protesting against defunding the police, maybe we should be defunding segregated schools. I think we would be striking a more sharp blow against racism if we did that. Okay, what is the solution? Now, I'm a John Dewey scholar, and I believe in my heart that the solution is to give up standard school lessons in favor of experiential learning. Here we see a picture of some girls looking at a butterfly in nature, or some kids having a cooking class with an Indian teacher teaching them how to make Indian food, or a kid just playing with some toys, or a family solving a puzzle. These are all people having experiences, not lessons. Good. So here's some other examples. Some teenage guys working together on a mural project. They're working on something beautiful. Or some girls working on a marine robotics project. They're making something functional. They're making it good, workable, useful. Okay, so what is experiential education? What is experience, and what do experiential educators mean by learning from experience? So an experience is doing something, yes, and then undergoing the consequence. You do something, you see what happens. You do something, you see what effect it has. Okay, so here's some examples. On the right, on the left, we see a young man hitting a soccer ball off a tee toward the goal. Now, the first thing to notice, he wants to do it. He's outside. He has a friend with him. He kicks the ball and sees where it goes. Does it go into the goal? If it doesn't, he says, wait, let me try that again. And he tries it, and he tries it, and he's getting better. He tries it and sees what happens. Tries it and sees what's happened. It makes a concrete effect on his nervous system. He's getting better at hitting the soccer ball. Okay, next picture here, we see a girl hitting a tennis ball. Okay, she's hitting a tennis ball, same thing. She hits the ball, sees where it goes. Does it go into the court? If not, she tries it again. Notice that her desire for drill and practice is built in. She wants to do it because she wants to get better. Okay, so we can generalize from this. You take an action, you see the effects, and it feeds back into your action. So take one action, has one effect, it feeds back. You take a second action, you get another effect. So here is a young child on the left making a picture. He looks at the picture. It's kind of intense. It's got a lot of color. It's vibrant. He has his hand on the paintbrush. He is going to put more paint on that picture to see what it looks like. He's going to take action and see what happens. Is it more intense? Is it more organized? Is it satisfying? Is it good? Is it beautiful? Same thing on the right with the girl making a painting of her doll. She takes action. She sees what's happened. Is it better? She's learning how to paint. She's learning how to get better, how to make things more beautiful. She's acquiring knowledge, true knowledge of painting. Here are some girls doing a science experiment. They're doing something. Here on the left, the girl is putting a chemical into a solution to see what color it turns. She's learning about science. Now here's a girl just reading a book under the covers. She's having a great experience too. How does this fit the model? She's reading. She's taking action. She's moving the story along to see what happens. She's kind of hoping that the heroine, who might be a girl just like herself, is going to be saved from the terrible villain. She's hopeful, but she may be disappointed. The story may be a tragedy, right? Doris Lessing said, "There is no doubt that fiction makes a better job of the truth." She means that fiction can often, through simplification and idealization, do a better job of teaching us about life than science can. The young girl's concerned with the truth about human relations. She's concerned about how things happen in the human world. She's absorbing every detail in the story because it's telling her how life really works. So there's a lot of talk these days about deeper learning. Deeper learning is experiential learning. You take action, it has effects. You take more action, it has more effects. Here on the right, we see these spirals. Action 1 leads to action 2. You see active learning on top. And with every cycle, we're getting deeper. We're changing our nervous system. We are not just learning words to repeat on a test. We are becoming better, more effective human beings at the cell level, at the level of our habit structure. So here is an example of experiential learning. A girl looking at a butterfly. It's beautiful, and it's changing her. Yes, she may want to reflect about this with her mom. Mom might say, "What did you see today, dear?" She said, "Oh, I saw this beautiful butterfly." Mom might say, "What color was it?" Etc. But sometimes just seeing is enough. Sometimes it's a starting point. You don't have to have a theory. You don't have to have lessons every single day. We need more experience, more of a basis in experience, then reflection, then conceptualization, then mathematical formulas. We have to be patient. Sometimes it's enough just to open your eyes and realize the truth is like the sun. The truth is like the sun. Let it illuminate. Elvis Presley said that. Oh, Plato said it also. But let it illuminate the things of the world that excite our senses. Let us get engaged. Then we can get excited. Then we think. Then we need concepts. Then we need lessons. So I want to come now to the end of my last section, which is the networked common school. This is the way I want to be thinking about the schools after the pandemic, the schools to combat racism. Good. I want you to come with me to a journey into the future. The future of internet connections all over the place. Everybody is skilled at using them. There are autonomous buses like this bus here that will take us everywhere. So here's what the highways look like. You can get on anywhere and it takes you everywhere safely, conveniently, and inexpensively. Now, before I say more about this world of the future, I want to tell you about two schools that are current schools, and they are both based on experiential learning and they are fully integrated. The first school is the Creative and Performing Arts School of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You'll see images here, the kids in a dramatic performance, kids in a chorus, kids in a training for improvisational dance, kids playing musical instruments. These schools are based entirely on the arts, and all of the other lessons come out of their art experiences. It is a Philadelphia City School District magnet school. Why is the school integrated? All the other schools in Philadelphia are not. It's integrated because the parents want their kids to have a great education. They want their kids to have an education in the arts. Now, this school is not open to everybody. You have to have an audition or show a portfolio, say if you're going to go to the painting and a visual arts program. By the way, my own son went to this school, so I know it intimately. Now, not every kid has parents who can recognize their gifts. Not every kid gets music lessons so they can play in an orchestra or painting lessons. So the school only serves a few people, but it is experiential education, fully integrated. This school, noted as the Harrisburg Capital Area School of the Arts. It's kind of like Kappa, and you'll see fully integrated school based on performing and creative arts. However, and you notice the logo for the school looks like graffiti art. It was made by the kids. This school is not a school district school. It is a charter magnet school that is a partnership of 29 school districts in the Harrisburg area. Harrisburg, for those of you outside of the United States, is the big capital city of the state of Pennsylvania, the same state where Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are located. So 29 school districts that go 50 miles out into the countryside, farm country, the coal mining region where very poor white kids live. These schools are suburban schools, largely white, inner city Harrisburg schools, almost all Black and Latino, suburban schools, but all these kids go to school together and they have experiential education in the arts, 170 of them in 29 school districts. You have to qualify, okay? But they're fully integrated. Why? Because the parents want a great education for their kids. They don't care if there are Black kids there, or if there are brown kids there, or yellow kids. They want experiential education in the arts for their kids. Good. Now, I would like you now to imagine a rearrangement of our metropolitan area school arrangements for the big metropolitan areas. They could be in China, they could be in Korea or India or England or the United States or Europe. So imagine a lot of local schools in a lot of school districts. So the red one over here might be in the inner city. The yellow one might be out in the country. The green one might be in a suburb. They're in different school administrations, but the partnership, like the Harrisburg partnership, allows them to have central learning centers, a creative and performing arts learning center, a science and technology and design learning center. They could have school forest nature learning center, a school farm learning center. The important thing is, because of autonomous vehicles and the internet, these kids can get back and forth between all these different learning centers and their schools, and they can move between their schools to have shared school experiences. Now, every metropolitan area in the United States is predominantly white. But in every single case, the school districts in that area are segregated. Where there are Black and brown kids, there is segregation. So if we have, like the Harrisburg's 29 district partnership had, if you have all these districts together, you have plenty of white, Black, brown, and yellow kids who can go to school together. So the idea is, why confine them to their local school? Local school's great. Each local school serves a purpose. It serves a neighborhood. Some of the inner city school might be an Afrocentric school. The school over here in the suburb might have a lot of Latina kids. The green school might serve an area that has a lot of Chinese American kids. By the way, the schools that serve Chinese American kids are the best schools in the United States. Not a joke. Uh, the kids in America, the Chinese American kids, do just as well on tests as kids do in China, in Shanghai. So imagine situations where 1 day every week, or 1 week every month, or 2 months during the school year, the kids are at the learning center, learning together, learning with other children, having experiential learning in the arts, in science, in outdoor nature, in farming. I want to say about the farm school that every metro area has farms. Every metro area has forests. In Philadelphia, they actually have a high school of farming right in the middle of the city. Kids who go to this high school have a wonderful experiential high school education, growing crops for their animals, taking care of horses, taking care of dogs, growing flowers and vegetables, and preparing them for the kids. It's a great school, and you don't have to test in. You just have to apply, and there's always a waiting list. Good. Here are the biggest 12 metro areas in the United States. For most people around the world, the names of these city areas are familiar: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, etc. These are not school districts. These are large, not cities. They're large metropolitan areas. They all have 5 million or more kids. We could be building learning centers in every one of these districts, multiple learning centers, and having kids visit with each other for experiential learning, part of their school year. And because we have internet and blended learning, and because teachers are getting better and better and better at using blended learning techniques, especially online techniques now during COVID, it would be possible to start an experience at the learning center and then continue it at the local schools. Imagine, for example, a metro area art show. We start with art lessons at the learning center, and then the kids continue to do art at their local schools through networked learning, with the learning center beaming lessons to the schools, and the schools then having the opportunity to show the work of the kids on screens that can be seen everywhere in the metro area. None of this is that far-fetched. Here is what we're talking about. Whatever is imaginable, whatever has been made real in most of its parts, can be achieved. This is not an impossible dream. Here is the one. Here are kids together holding up the world. They are our hope and our dream. And this is our vision for unity, love, peace, for humanity. This is all the one we need. We don't need to absorb ourselves in a monistic whole by ourselves to say the sacred word Om. We have to work together to build a world that works for everybody. Here they are: truth, beauty, and goodness. That's it. Thank you so much.